This is Vikes Now. I'm your host, Dustin Baker. We're going to talk about the implications of the Jesse Davis signing yesterday, the offensive line solution, evidently. Got about 7 things to talk about. We'll probably go for about 15 minutes. Suddenly, whether it is a half-measured solution or it actually works with an offensive-minded head coach, there is a crowded house, so to speak, for right guard because you have Udo, who was decent for, 5 games in 2021? And then the penalties set in. Those were aggravating. You didn't like it. I sure as shit didn't. And his stock faded. He cooled. He fizzled. And Mason Cole came in. Lo and behold, unsung dude, a Spielman trade product, was good. But he ain't going to play here anymore. He's going to Pittsburgh, another good organization, and they'll probably end up starting him, and it'll be wonderful. You know it's going to happen. So you have Udo, Jesse Davis coming in for 1 year, $3 million. And then Wyatt Davis, the gigantic mystery from Ohio State where nobody knows if he's good. It was a Rick Spielman special in the draft. The guy was coveted in 2020 for draft stock. They found him in the 3rd round, the fruit of trading back with the New York Jets, and then he just didn't play. Out of shape, didn't look good on tape. I don't know if he'll blossom, but right now you have 3 dudes at right guard that creates a 3-way of competition for 2022. So it's not necessarily a good situation to be in because you're going to have an open competition of menial dudes. Jesse Davis, not Wyatt, Jesse Davis, who came from the Dolphins, only had a PFF score in the 50s, and he's never had a single season higher than 65. I think his cap was 62-something in 2020. He plays a lot. He was an undrafted free agent from Idaho, I believe, in 2017, and he's played 80 games for the Dolphins, started 72 of them. So they liked him, they trusted him over and over for 5 years, moved him around on the line. Maybe that's why the Vikings signed him, because that is their credo, saying, hey, you played right guard at one point, why don't you come play left tackle? That's on my show with Bryant McKinney. He always, almost every show, talks about how that gets on his nerves, that you shouldn't be playing dudes out of position. I digress. So there is a 3-way competition for this right guard spot, presumably the favorite because of the money linked to the 1-year deal for Jesse Davis. He's the odds-on favorite. And it's frustrating because there was a glimmer of hope that, after McKinney and Steve Hutchinson retired, this offensive line pass protection has been woeful. 1 year it was good in 2017. It was decent in 2017. Look what happened. So it's frustrating because when we got a new head coach, a new general manager, somebody was going to recognize it. Not me here in my kitchen, not you, just you on your couch. The world was going to understand that you need to bolster the trenches for pass protection because typically that is a blueprint for the playoffs and beyond into the Super Bowl. They might still do it. Maybe Zimmer and his crew were just so atrocious at cultivating an offensive line over and over each year that a new offensive brain will come in and fix it. I guess that's what you have to bank on right now, unless they have some big sexy trade for a center or a right guard. But I think on the whole, before we get into the rest of this, the Jesse Davis signing is underwhelming, chiefly because we thought maybe Brandon Scherf would come here if we found some money, or maybe Treader could come play center, and then it really wouldn't matter too much who would play right guard. Nope, it's the same stuff. We're going to have a plan that you'll probably find a way to get quasi-optimistic about this summer. Week 1's going to start. Week 2, Cousins going to be under pressure in the pocket where he is weak, pocket presence, and it's going to be the same song and dance unless the new coaching staff has voodoo that Mike Zimmer and friends did not. That will be the almighty hinge for this season, because if it's like this again, the ceiling is probably like 2019, where they shockingly won a playoff game with suspect pass protection and then got their asses handed to them the following week in the Bay. So let's go back to Wyatt Davis. If he can live up to his 2020 draft stock and surprise everybody, get in fabulous shape, then this is all moot, because where he was drafted in the 3rd round, he reasonably should have had playing time last year. That's what leads me to be so concerned, is because guards, interior offensive linemen drafted that high should play. They wouldn't do it with him. They're like, we ain't doing that, homie. And so he just sat on the bench, and we have this utopian vision of him that we're the only ones that realizes he's good, where in reality, if they're signing Jesse Davis or they're keeping Oli Udo, Wyatt probably ain't that good. That's the working theory on March 29th. But still young, all these dudes take time to progress. I think that is something we don't have as fans, as patience. You look at Everson Griffin, who we talked about on episode 2 of Vikes Now. That dude didn't blossom until 2014. He was in the league for 5 years. And the only thing that we remember about Everson is how good he was from 2014 until now. But he took 4 or 5 years to blossom. So perhaps that could happen with Wyatt Davis. Who the hell knows? And the other thing I want to, make a shout out to Oli Udo, that he was pretty decent outside of penalties. For perspective, the new guy we just signed, Jesse Davis, he had a worse PFF grade than Oli Udo in 2021. I don't think he had as many penalties, which were, frustrating as all hell. But Oli Udo, in terms of pro football focused scoring system, was a better football player. Now, their strengths are flipped. Udo, like the Vikings' tail of the last 10 years, better at run blocking than at pass blocking. On the other hand, Jesse Davis is supposed to be a little bit reversed and not be so run heavy. He's supposed to be either balanced or a little bit more pass blocking friendly, which we'll welcome with open arms. But Udo wasn't horrible. It's the penalties that stick out in your brain that the memories are so shitty. And those are big deals. So I'm not sitting here saying, well, they shouldn't have moved on from Udo, or why is he in the competition? He should be the starter. No, but if somebody, the new regime, could fix that for Udo, he ain't horrible. All right, the next thing about the implications of this Jesse Davis signing for the offensive line for the 2022 Vikings is don't forget about the draft. They probably won't take an offensive lineman at first. The only one that has the draft stock, at least in the Vikings range, in the number 12 spot, would be that Tyler Linderbaum. I don't think they'll take him because they have graver needs, and I don't know that he's the best player available at 12. However, most franchises find interior offensive linemen in the guts of the draft. Because the Vikings have sucked for so long, Rick Spielman took swings at it every single season, starting in, 2018 with Brian O'Neill's second round. First round, Bradbury, 2019. 2020 was, who am I missing? Ezra Cleveland. And then last year with Darisaw. So they are trying to fix this thing. They're absolutely trying to fix it. It's just that their solutions with this run blocking scheme haven't benefited the pass protection. But don't forget about this draft, because with a new brain in the saddle, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, perhaps they'll draft a guard or center in round 5, or can't do it in 4 because Chris Herndon stole the pick, but round 3 or something like that we don't necessarily have to, the Vikings don't have to invest gargantuan draft stock to find a reasonable interior line. Most teams find these guys later in the draft. So don't rule that out of your mock drafts when you're on PFF or thedraftnetwork.com. Throw a guard in there, throw a center in there. It'll be all right. And that could just thicken the competition because you would have Udo, the Davises, and an unnamed rookie guy from round 5. So keep that in mind. The next part on the whole of this implication is the Vikings, the current brand of leadership, is rebanking on the fact, after we've already seen it, that the reason 2021 was poor in terms of wins and losses was Mike Zimmer. That is what this signing implies. Because the offseason roadmap, for the most part, besides Za'Darius, arguably, has been a Spielman and Zimmer offseason. Now we have this offensive line plan that's been hatched that might not be done yet. There might still be some stuff on the way, but it feels like it's the puppet masters, Zimmer and Spielman, saying, yeah, we'll make these career reservist guys, make them work, that'll be fine. And our only hope is that the brains inside the bowels of the Egan facility know offensive line pass protection more so than Zimmer and Kubiak and the boys. That is our Hail Mary saving grace, that they're going to nail it because they know better in terms of coaching acumen. But this is a broad point that you have to lift up on the whole, that this entire offseason, the implication based on the moves they make is they believe Zimmer was shitty. And he was the only thing about this organization roster that was shitty, because everything they have done is retain the core group, get a little sexier with Za'Darius Smith. We'll see what they do in the draft. but they want the 2021 Vikings sans Mike Zimmer. And the addition of Jesse Davis as a solution, possibly on the right guard, reaffirms that mentality. But this is the thing that is depressing, is this is continued offensive line futility, at least on paper. Maybe they'll come out week 1 in September and look fabulous, and we'll look around and say, God, son of a bitch, Zimmer was the problem for all those years in terms of offensive line prowess. But the risk here is that we're doing the same thing over and over, getting these menial dudes to be good pass protectors, and they're not. That is the risk. And I think for fans' sanity, for playoff consistency, if somebody at some point, Kwesi, O'Connell, the ownership, me if they give me a job, if they look around the landscape of the NFL and they realize that handsome trenches that protect quarterbacks, those teams go straight to hell to the playoffs. I hope that somebody finally realizes that. And maybe my folly here was recording too early in the offseason. They'll get this shit all figured out soon. We shall see. And you know why all this is so important? Especially because you don't have Dante Culpepper anymore. You don't have Travaris Jackson, these nimble guys who can wiggle out of the pocket. You have Kirk Cousins, who his one chief weakness is pocket presence. So indeed, he needs the trenches to be peachy so that he plays well. And the only thing that we know about Cousins as Vikings fans is how he performs with a shitty offensive line. And as the sun rises, it's 4,000 passing yards, 30-plus touchdowns. The flirtation is to say, well, what the hell can he do if he has a regular offensive line? And I think that's the thirst that we all have to say, can we just see it? Now, he had pretty good trenches in Washington when he was maturing. Didn't have much of a defense or a run game, which the Vikings, when he got here, they had that. The guy can never get a full mix like Stafford got with the Rams this past season. But to employ a pocket passer who is notoriously suspect for pocket presence and who doesn't scramble all that quickly, you've got to have good pass protection. And that is why I am pounding the kitchen table here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota for it. We shall see if they actually listen or if the solution that they have is just undervalued by me in late March. Two other things. You can never rule out the possibility of, in the summer, let's say the battle is off and running between Wyatt Davis, Jesse Davis, Oli Udo, unnamed rookie guy. And if they look at that and they're like, God, this ain't good. This ain't going to cut it. That wouldn't have mattered in the old days. They would have been like, well, we'll figure it out. And if Jesse Davis sucks, we'll insert the other Davis and we'll do that week 4 and we'll have those guys get blown up and Cousins will be on his ass. Perhaps with new people in charge, if they recognize, let's say August 20th, that the right guard spot is terrible, the center isn't progressing in year 5, well, you can trade. You can make a trade. That's not out of the realm of possibility for a new general manager or for anybody for that matter. But I'm possessing a lot of hope that this new group of leadership understands how important the trenches are and pass protection. So it doesn't have to be doom and gloom before the NFL draft even happens. There are solutions that can be met. However, the only thing that's probably ruled out is signing a big free agent because I think they have about $11 million in cap space. They got to save $9 million of that, sign draft picks. And if you want to find more cap money, then you got to crawl up to Dalvin Cook and Eric Kendricks and say, restructure for me, would you? This is what we do around these parts. That's what you'd have to do. So the spending big on free agents is probably done unless they've got a trick up their sleeve, which Rob Brzezinski's pretty good with those tricks. And finally, just for posterity, it was funny. I'm scanning for topics to write about in Vikings territory today, and I saw Bleacher Report this morning authored the worst free agent additions per each team. And I was like, ooh, this will be good. I wonder if I'll click on this for the Vikings and it'll say Austin Schlottman because nobody's ever heard who he was because nobody can hate Za'Darius and nobody can hate Jordan Hicks. I click on it and bada bing, it says Jesse Davis. No less than 18 hours from his acquisition to the Vikings, Bleacher Report names that as the worst signing for the Vikings of this offseason. So not a good omen. I don't know if you read Bleacher Report, but I wish they would have found something different. It would have given me warm fuzzies if it was Ty Smith because then at least somebody would know, some football brain would realize that maybe this Jesse Davis guy won't work. Moral of the story, it's early in the offseason. The draft hasn't happened yet. You don't have to be doom and gloom about the offensive line, but you do have to be suspicious because we are tunneling down a familiar path, one that drives you batshit crazy. I will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, with a new topic. That's all I got today. Skol, baby.